Okay, and we are live. Hello, everyone. Welcome, and thank you for tuning in to a Comm Talk, spelt however you want to spell it. We've got a great group of guests here today, and we're going to be kind of diving into the topic: Is the future green? Future of travel green. With that being said, I would like to introduce our first guest today, Vinny. Vinny, please tell
Hi,
me who you are, a little bit about yourself and your background.
Hi, I'm Vinny. I am currently a mechanical engineering technologist at SAIT. I work at Lamborghini Calgary as a lot attendant and detailer. I've always been into the automotive industry for my entire life. So always been into cars, engines, all that type of stuff.
Beautiful. Love to hear it. We'll send it over to Grant. Grant, lay it
Hello,
on us.
everyone. My name is Grant. I'm also a student specializing in the design and development for mechanical engineering technology at SAIT. I like Vinny. I've been into cars and transportation and any of that sort of thing for quite a long time. But I also see the benefits of having a green future. So I'm curious to see where this conversation takes us.
That should be good. Should be good. Mariah, let's hear from you now.
As my other friends here, I am also a mechanical engineering student at SAIT, and I am still learning about how things are greener or if they're greener, or I don't know. I'm still trying to figure those things out and learn a little bit more.
Okay, cool. Cool. And we'll finish it off, last but not least, Chris. Please fill us in.
No, it's no surprise. I'm also in the mechanical engineering, design and development stream. Both like Grant and Vinny have also done some good amount of work on different vehicles, transmission swaps, and I'm excited for the conversation.
Okay, beautiful. Well, I guess we should just get right into it then. I think the first thing people like to talk about when talking about kind of the future and, future is electric and green, they bring up Tesla right away.
Mm-hmm.
How does anyone feel about that? Has anybody got some opinions on that?
Teslas are pieces of shit.
Okay.
Right now.
Starting
Yes,
strong.
yes.
We'll go strong then. Vinny, get on the
Okay.
floor.
Tesla's shitty build quality. I've been near one, and my Mazda has a better build quality than Tesla, and it was rebuilt by some guy in his garage. Start off with that.
Okay. But what about the argument, though, that it's electric? So it's an electric car. Like, how
This is
about
going to
that?
be even. The fact that it's an electric car? Oh,
That's
even better. It's even worse. The lithium batteries are terrible. Terrible for the environment, just terrible in general. Electric
Yeah.
cars don't get as much range during extreme weather conditions. The lithium batteries themselves take lots of power to mine. It's roughly 17.5 million gallons of diesel powered by, 35 to 40 Cat 797 haul trucks,
Mhm.
which is from a source that I found from Terry Clark from Facebook.
Solid source. Love that.
We love
solid, very. It's
Yeah,
like
very
Reddit,
solid
just as
source.
good.
The guy
Yeah,
had
it's
a
real high quality.
30s Ford in his profile picture, so I think I can trust that. But yeah, like all
Okay.
around, they're just terrible. Like even from the standpoint from after they're built,
Mhm.
buying a new Tesla is worse for the environment than buying a brand new Corolla.
So I'm glad you brought that up. So I also looked into that whole claim of, we all hear that Teslas are terrible from the get-go, correct? So I wanted to look into how much would you have to drive a Tesla till your carbon emissions are mitigated by that fact. I found here from our Reuter source business group that it takes only 8,400 miles for a Tesla to become efficient.
I'm gonna interrupt for a second.
Please.
Now, does that go off green energy? Are they charging the battery off of using, let's say, solar panels, or are they charging it off of a coal power plant?
Well, that's a great point.
Good question.
Great point.
Most of the
Yeah.
plants here in Alberta are coal
Mhm.
power, so the chances of it being actually green is slim to none. Because
I
not
actually
only
have a
that,
lot of information. I pulled
We have
up
a
some
lot of natural
information
gas.
Yeah, here.
on the
Let's see,
energy
Grant.
consumption of Alberta and Canada in 2020.
Mhm.
So in Alberta in 2020, 90% of the total energy generation that came out of Alberta came from coal and natural gas.
Oh, wow.
And just the remaining 10% were renewables. A majority of that was wind, the rest was hydro, and a little bit of geothermal, which I was kind of surprised by. But yeah, in Canada as a whole, just 19% is natural gas and coal. The rest are clean energies, which is mostly hydro. I'm assuming coming from BC and the Great Lakes and all of that.
That's interesting. So, in your
I
opinion,
think
then,
sorry.
is electric car charging efficient in Canada, or is it kind of like a double-edged sword to what Chris is saying?
Well, it depends on where you get your power from. If you were to get it in Alberta, it's probably not the best because all of that power is coming from natural gas and coal. But if you were to go somewhere in BC or maybe Ontario where they have nuclear and they have hydro, as I'm assuming I'm correct, right, Tyler?
Correct.
Then
A lot of hydro.
perhaps it'll be a lot more cleaner than say somewhere in Alberta.
Oh, okay, interesting. Mara, do you have anything you want to add to that, or any points that you know of?
I was kind of not hearing you guys talk about that. I didn't realize it was so deep. So no, I'm learning listening to you guys. I kind of did some research more on like the facts of like the cars and like if they're even helpful or the reduction in the batteries or stuff like that, which
that's interesting.
I
think we'd love to hear about that.
Well, okay, so like the Tesla batteries, they just like deplete their energy. We probably all know this, but by like 2 to 3% every year. And you can actually overcharge them apparently and like wreck them. So then there's a piece of like stuff that's completely useless. Also, I thought was kind of interesting, and I think this would apply to us if we had Teslas. There's like anxiety about driving them because you don't know where your next docking station is.
Exactly. I've heard about the range anxiety before.
Yeah. So I don't know. That was like the things that like I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't even think of that, but it makes sense. And
that's interesting.
Yeah. Sorry, you guys are like
but I'd like to add on to that point though about kind of the range anxiety. I was online and I just heard about this aircraft called the EDA 40, which is an electric airplane with a total flight time of 90 minutes. Apparently, the operating costs are reduced by 40%, and the company has hybrid aircraft. So I want to hear you guys' opinion on that. Electric airplanes.
Yeah, I did a little bit of research on electric airplanes. From just purely based on the current technology we have with lithium-ion batteries, they are only limited to short-range hauls. So like, say, Calgary to Edmonton or Calgary to Vancouver.
It's kind of like an Uber.
Yeah, exactly. They can't do long haul because there's a diminishing return to the amount of batteries you put in versus the amount that you can carry in the range that you have.
Due to
if
weight.
I remember, it's mostly due to weight, and there's also the issue of the companies have to make money, and if they spend 8 hours recharging the batteries every time they need to fly an hour, it's probably not the best. Either they need 8 times the planes, or they just can't. It's estimated. It's usually quite a long time.
Batteries take forever to charge.
Because I think
it'll take quite a long time.
Vehicles take about 24 from fully dead to fully full.
See, and here I heard.
Wait, hold on. I'm going to interrupt again. Is that going to be on 110 volt, or is that going to be on a 220 volt? For how long they take to charge?
Standard 110.
110? Yeah, okay.
So 100. So just so we can clear this up, 110 takes 24 hours from 0 to 100 to charge. Correct, Vinny?
Yes.
Yes.
Is that out of a standard wall outlet, or is that a dedicated?
Yeah, that's going to be standard. That's going to be a standard wall outlet.
Be your standard wall outlet.
Okay.
I heard something different. I heard they can do like a quick charge for like
they have quick charging stations, and they can do it in like 30 minutes. But I don't know the voltage through them, but it's much higher.
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah, they push a lot of
30
power.
minutes to charge your battery versus 5 minutes filling up your tank of gas.
Exactly.
Well, hold on. I'm gonna argue on the side of electric cars here, just to kind of play devil's advocate, because I do mainly agree with Vinny about the battery situation. But with electric cars, one of the benefits, and one of the main benefits, is actually the motor themselves. Electric motors are very reliable. They can produce huge amounts of horsepower and torque for being very small versus ICE engines, and they usually can last much longer than an ICE engine. So although the battery side of electric cars is where it's mainly flawed, the actual ignoring the technology of electric motors to me is rather naive, without saying that there's not a solution. So one thing that I researched a lot is actually using electric motors, but maybe using a hybrid system with ICE engines, or using hydrogen.
I definitely agree with Chris. I lean more towards the hybrid side as well. Electric motors are great. It's the battery production that kind of seems iffy. So maybe we need to find a cleaner way of getting gasoline. But
well, not only that too, the hybrids, like even hybrid vehicles have this high voltage system. Like I've seen it in my work all the time with different vehicles, like the Porsche Panameras, all those different ones that use the e-hybrids. they have the high voltage system, which makes it 10 times harder to work on these vehicles because you have to have somebody who knows how to disable the system, disable it,
Mhm.
and to get under there. And if something fails, they electrocute themselves and they're dead on the spot.
Jeez.
Yeah,
That's
just,
not
just,
really
just
good.
a small little issue.
Yeah.
And if you don't know what you're doing around the high voltage, you'll kill yourself right away.
Yeah,
So-
I know SATE actually, I believe they started a program a few years back to actually train people to work on electric vehicles and hybrid vehicles because it's actually closer to working as an electrician than working as a mechanic in a car shop, just
That's
because of the voltages and all the electricals that goes into these.
I wonder if does anyone here have any background knowledge in terms of what happens to cars when they're crashed? These electric cars, because I imagine they're super hard to fix.
Oh, after they're
Well,
crashed,
the fires are horrendous.
Yeah, you have to worry about
fires.
fires.
Terrible.
you're pretty much totaled after a crash. Your chances of fixing one is very hard because of the batteries
Mm.
and the way how the electrical system runs. Even
And
like,
sorry, I'm going to add on to what Vinny's saying there. Sorry,
Yeah.
sorry, Vinny, I interrupted you.
No
But
worries.
with I have a friend who's a firefighter, and the reason he'll never buy a current system of electric cars that have a lithium-ion battery is just how much water he's experienced needs to put out one of these cars. He's only had to put out, I think he told me 2, but they burn 3 times as hot as an ICE engine, and they are also much, much, much harder, and they can ignite. So it might take 3 times to
'cause
actually
it's
put it
a
out
bunch of
before it's
packs.
actually
Well,
completely out.
I should ask
lithium-ion.
you quick.
Here,
guys-
everyone.
I
Okay.
should.
Let Mariah have this. Let's.
I just quick interjection. I know somebody who's a firefighter, and I'm gonna ask them, and then but just for fun. I'll have
Okay,
to
so
tell
we'll
you
see you
guys.
back here next week.
Yeah,
then.
because he's seen many crashes, and I'm gonna ask if he's had. Yeah, well, I don't know. I'll ask
Okay,
him.
Perfect.
Well,
I
the big
think
issue,
Greg
the
wanted to
big
say
issue with
something too.
lithium-ion batteries is they're kind of like they provide their own oxygen and they provide their own fuel. So once they have a thermal runaway, they will like continue to run, and literally the only way to stop them is either to let them burn out or to like douse them in sand to like completely cut them off. I know that if you have a thermal runaway
So
on
cut
a
off the
lithium-ion
oxygen?
battery like this, you would have to like literally just contain it and just let it burn.
Are you
I
saying to
know
cut
that-
off the oxygen? Sorry.
Well, it produces its own oxygen, so you kind of have to limit it.
Yeah. So how does
which-
what does the sand do? I'm confused. Sorry.
just to keep
Smothers
the
it.
fire from
Because
spreading,
you
I guess.
want to cut
Mm.
all sources of other
Mm.
elements from reaching it, because lithium is one of the most reactive substances in the
Yeah,
world.
there have actually been
Very
That's
plane
cool.
dangerously
crashes.
reactive.
There have actually been plane
Water,
crashes that have been caused by
air,
lithium ion.
anything will light it on fire. That's why with lithium they usually have to seal it when it's like the raw, like not the raw ore, but when it's like milled and purified and everything, it has to be sealed because any sort of other elements get to it, it'll just go crazy and blow.
Even in medications, because people
That's
take lithium
interesting.
for medications, and it has
Oh,
to
really?
be sealed.
It's interesting, right?
Yep.
Oh, neat.
I was also when Chris said he was talking about some actual positives of these electric
Mhm.
vehicles, I thought I'd chime in. Something I found kind of interesting was that, sorry to change the subject,
No, absolutely.
was like the you actually use your brake a lot less, so you don't go through your brake
Mhm.
pads as much. I didn't know that. Did you guys know that?
Yes, it's called
Yeah.
regenerative
Yeah,
braking, and what it
Oh.
does is
Yeah.
it takes the
So-
heat and the friction from the brakes. I'll let Vinny kind of explain this better after, and it converts that resistance back into energy. Vinny, please correct me if I'm wrong.
No,
That's
that's
cool.
pretty much it. So I remember because we had a Panamera e-hybrid a while back at the shop as our service loaner. So when we drove that, every time you let your foot off the gas or when you start braking, there's like a mid chart on the dash that will tell you if you're using electricity or if you're charging the battery. So for example, you were using electricity when you're in the electric mode, but you're charging battery when you had the engine either just idling or driving with just the motor or when you were braking. So it would tell you how much. So the battery would charge while you're driving. But you can also charge the battery on the side as a standard electric vehicle.
That's interesting. Okay. We are kind of passing our halfway point, and I don't want to only focus on Teslas, even though it's a great conversation towards that too. I kind of want to talk a little bit more about kind of the politics and what kind of agendas are being pushed on this. I'm sure we've all seen in Europe that by 2030 they want all the cars produced to be electric. California being 2035. I want to hear you guys' thoughts on that. Anyone
That
want
will
to take the
never
stage?
happen because it's
Vinny.
going to be way too hard for that to even work. Because
Okay.
not only do you have to think about new car sales, you have to remember all the other cars that have been sold over like the past 100 years since cars have been invented. And not only that, you've got companies like Porsche, Ferrari, Lamborghini, all those guys are against this.
Yeah.
They still want to produce gas motors. Same with GM. A couple of days ago, they came up with an article. Even though they're making electric vehicles, they still want to stick with the internal combustion.
Well, that's interesting. I like that. Oh, sorry, Mariah. Would you like
go
to
ahead? You go
Okay,
ahead.
thank you. I just like to add to that point too about even when new cars are produced too. If you produce a truck, say in 2029, on average, trucks last to around 750,000 miles too. So you can still see trucks from the 80s and 90s still roaming the roads to these days, and you'll still need an infrastructure to support them years down the road as well.
Not only that, like the big rigs too, like the big semis. Like I got a cousin who works for Bison. They're still running some of those trucks like from ages ago. But some of those brand new Volvo trucks already have like 300,000 miles on them. And they're still going to make them because the diesel is so efficient.
Yeah, my grandpa is a trucker, and he bought his truck in the 80s. And he said he's tripped over the odometer a couple of times, which means he's hit well over 3 million kilometers in this truck. So like they can just go forever, and that'll show you just how long. Like some of these trucks will just go for 30 or 40 years past even now.
So then let me go back to that. What is your guys' thoughts on that? I know Vinny, you mentioned that. I want to hear. I want to hear from everyone. What is your thoughts on eliminating cars by 2030? Chris, please have the floor.
Sorry. Yeah. Okay.
We'll go to you after Mariah.
I'll let you go, Mariah, after that. So with the whole making cars and kind of pushing the whole market towards electric cars, I think is rather, again, I like to use the word naive. And I find it naive because in reality, at the end of the day, only focusing on car infrastructure and having our cities completely orientated towards cars in themselves is more of the problem than what they're powered by, in my opinion. If we were to orientate our cities and change our infrastructure to be a lot more accommodating for things like public transit or biking lanes, I think overall, even if we get 30% or 40% of our commuters on public transit and biking, would be way more beneficial to the environment than if we were to have everyone driving electric cars. So I think this push by governments is rather a Band-Aid fix than an actual really systemic proper fix to the climate crisis.
That's a great point. I want to add on that just before we give it to you, Mariah.
No,
how great would it be if it was like, say, Europe, where we lived in Europe, and streets are walkable, and you got these nice storefronts, and not everywhere requires you to have a car. I've heard this referred to as suburban hell, where you got these pockets of houses, and you got your shopping mart district. So how great would it have been to, say, have these communities more oriented around people? Public transportation.
Yeah, sorry, I'm going to add to that.
Yes.
I know because my brother lives in BC. In BC and in most provinces, there's a thing that used to be around like in the 80s, 90s, which was a garage store. This is where you can convert your store to a garage. You can put like a shop in there, like a little, but they're banned now, and they're banned usually made to fire hazards, which is fair enough. But if we were to orientate and maybe get some of these shops back into our communities, even just small ones like a pet store or something, I think that could go a long way to getting people to get back into walkability.
Yeah, awesome. That's a great thought. Mariah, let's hear your thoughts now.
I mean, overall, like, for instance, my dad worked 30 years in the oil industry. And before this podcast today, I've asked him, I'm like, what do you think? Well, you could probably imagine what he thinks.
Strong opinions.
It's like, no, the electric is useless. But I would say in the sense where I think maybe for local reasons, like we were talking about, like in the city or short trips or stuff, like not long-term and big for scale, maybe not big scale.
So you're more along the side of consumer products rather than commercial products?
Yeah. Maybe. Okay. I'm not really sure yet.
No, fair enough.
I think electric vehicles and just like electric transportation in general will fill very niche markets. But I think on a mass scale, it's going to be very difficult to like have everything electric. They're just because boats, they make up 90% of the world's shipping industry. And there's no way in hell that you would be able to electrify them efficiently. Or at least not today. Maybe in the future when we have a better battery technology or some other way to make electrical energy for them.
Okay.
But like something like not today. I mean, there's a ferry in Denmark that's like entirely electric, but it's literally connected straight to like mains power. There's no batteries. There's nothing else. It's literally just plugged into plugged it into the grid, and it's a really, really short haul back and forth, like across a river or a fjord or something.
That's neat.
Um,
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I think I think the last point I'd like to bring up in our final couple minutes here too is, let's say the future isn't electric. Is there any energy sources you guys think could be a suitable replacement? Are we going to maximize the efficiency of gasoline, diesel? Is this just electric? Is that the only way to go? I think I think that'd be an interesting conversation to end off on here. Does anyone want to take the floor for this?
Well,
So,
I'd,
other
uh,
energy
Oh,
sources?
pardon me.
everyone wants to step in here.
Yeah, everyone wants to step in.
Right
Well,
away.
eager. We're having too much
Okay.
fun.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
my
think
question
that,
was, sorry, can I just have clarification of what you asked?
Yeah, does the future need to be electric, or can it be a different energy source?
Oh, okay.
That's the question.
And Grant, you can go.
Well, okay, so electrical engines literally just use electrical power, and all we're converting right now is chemical energy into electrical energy. So what's stopping us from using a different type of chemical?
Mhm.
So right now we're using gasoline, but what if we use hydrogen and turn that into electrical energy that way?
Okay.
Because it's going from a chemical energy to a thermal energy to an electrical energy.
That's interesting.
And hydrogen is one of the most efficient ways to produce electrical energy from a chemical energy without some very damaging byproducts. Because hydrogen, when combined with oxygen, literally just makes water or steam.
So you can drink out of it after, eh?
So you could literally drink out of it.
That's awesome.
Like I would consider it relatively clean, depending on the technologies that convert it.
Okay.
But unfortunately, there's not very much market out there. I know there's a couple of cars that run off of hydrogen. Like there's a Toyota, I think it's called the Mirai or something.
I like that
It
name.
can really
I'd love to
really
take a
only be
famous
used
brand
in
on this.
Vancouver because there's only like 2 or 3 stations in Canada that would be able to fill up compressed hydrogen.
Okay. Vinny, do you want to send us off? I want to hear your thoughts on this. I feel like you can have some good information on this too. What's your thoughts on hydrogen?
the hydrogen power is a great idea. There are some flaws that still need to be worked out because, of course, you have a gas tank that's about roughly 20 inches by, 15 by a foot deep ish, around there. Hydrogen, for the same amount, you need to double because hydrogen can't be compressed in the same way as gas, and it takes more power. I'm looking more because there is hydrogen combustion engines out on the market right now, where you take the hydrogen and it takes more hydrogen to get the same amount of power as your standard octane, 87 octane or 91.
Okay.
So
let me ask you this then, Vinny. What is the future? What is the future? Gas, electric, hydrogen? What is the future?
right now, Porsche is developing with a bunch of other companies such as Mazda, I think Lamborghini and Volkswagen. They're making something called an e-fuel. So basically, they're taking carbon emissions from vehicles and all other sources and converting that right back into gasoline.
So future is gasoline.
Future is gasoline, but with extra steps.
Future is gasoline with extra steps. Grant, finish us off. What is, or not finish us off? What is the future?
Agree. The future is whatever the market pushes us towards, really.
Okay.
Because hydrogen is a great fuel source, but the market isn't pushing for it. So maybe I haven't done enough research to find out what are some of the limits to hydrogen or some other fuel source. And maybe in the future, we'll have something that we haven't even thought of before.
Oh, interesting.
That'll be even better. But right now, it's just wherever the market takes us. Because right now, the market is very fossil fuel driven, but it might not be in the future.
Interesting. Mariah, I want to hear your thoughts. What is the future?
You know what? I just feel more confused, and let's just say nuclear power.
Very good.
I agree.
Nuclear into electric.
There's too much information. I can't figure it. Like, I need so much more to ever really say. Like, I need more information.
Absolutely.
Anyways.
Yeah, fair enough. Honest answer.
Short
Thank you.
but sweet. Yeah.
And Chris, finish us off here. What's your thoughts? What is the future to you?
What is the future to me? 15 years gasoline. After that, I think we're going to see more electric and hydrogen use.
Interesting. Well, that rounds us out for tonight. Thank you guys all for joining us. Great conversation.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you all.
Mary, we'll have you on next week to talk about what you learned from your friend, the firefighter.
I'll let you guys know in class.
Perfect. Okay.
Well,
take care, everyone. Thanks for listening to Comm Talk, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks,
Bye.
guys. Have a
good
one.
Thank you. Peace.